everybody. Nice to see you. My name is Michael. We're Zen class tonight. Is there anybody here for their first time? All right. Also, welcome everybody online. So we'll just find a comfortable or suitable sitting position. We'll sit for 20 to 25 minutes, and then if anybody wants to comment or ask any questions about what they felt while they were sitting, or Zen or Buddhism, or their daily practice, then we always love having a conversation. Also, I can, depending on that, read a little something at a Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, share a few thoughts, and barring that, let's sit again. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to share? All right, so I'll just share a few thoughts with you. One of the things I was thinking about was just obviously meditation and sitting is an important period in Buddhism, but in Zen, it's the constant focus of sitting, and so much of the teachings of Buddhism, I think, especially in Zen, the more depth I get in my practice, the more I really start to see how many of the teachings, come from sitting, but then if you read like Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and other Zen, teachings, it's like the framework for all those teachings are within sitting. And I was thinking about just kind of the importance of having a daily practice and just meditating every day. And so it's kind of the barriers that we can put up. I guess we, meaning me, the barriers we can put up to not do it. And I was just going through before I got off work and I came here, and I'm always a little out of it and transitioning into this. But I just kind of looked at this chapter on naturalness, and how he talks about in the chapter, it's like if we're hungry we eat, if we're tired we sleep. So it's natural that we do that. Like, we don't think about that. I don't think do I need to eat? What should I just eat, or I sleep, and it's very natural to do that. And a lot of times I'll make excuses, or find a way to not sit. Whether I come home and I'm just too tired, or I wake up and I don't have enough time. But I have time to sit and watch TV. I have time to do a lot of other things, because I've done it for so long. It's just very natural for me to go home and watch TV. When I drive home from work, and I always see people at that time they're getting off work and they're running, they're exercising, and I think, my God, that's abhorrent. I couldn't see myself doing that. Partially because my work is physical. I'm tired, but to them it's very natural. They get home and then they go for a run. That's what they do. And it might not have been that way at first, but it became that way because they did it every day. And I just thought, for myself, just the barriers that I put up to doing that, and when I make it a habit and do it every day, it becomes natural. It becomes something that I want to do when I get home. It's a part of my day. And it sounds simple, but to some degree, I feel like everything in Buddhism sounds simple, but it's harder to do in practice. And there's this kind of other idea too. He says, without nothingness, there is no naturalness. No true being. True being comes out of nothingness, moment after moment. Nothingness is always there, and from it, everything appears. But usually, forgetting all about nothingness, you believe as if you have something. What you do is based on some possessive idea or some concrete idea, and it's not natural. There's also the idea of emptiness, or shunyata. That's a very complex term in and of itself. But I do think the idea of just emptying out our minds and doing it without any expectation of anything is really important too. It's something as simple as how long should I sit? Or if it doesn't look like this, then it's not worth my time. And I don't know, I find myself falling into that, and so, I want to, for myself, especially, I want to create that awareness of that, and sort of push past that, because the most important thing that I can do, to sustain a daily practice is to sit. I also like to read and understand things too, but I think it all stems from sitting. And I think, in Zen especially, it's just so much of it is just sitting, but it's there's a richness there. And I think the more I read and learn and create the depth in my practice, I start to see it as so much more than just sitting, in terms of trying to understand the teachings, and the Four Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path, and all these other things, and I speak specifically to sort of Zen and tonight and about this and the way I see it. Those are my thoughts, anyway, what I was thinking about of late. But again, Zen class, people like to sit, so I understand that. But I can just sit for a minute, and then if somebody has something like to share, a question, that's fine too. We always like that. I just want to see if anybody's saying anything here. Okay, so somebody is asking online, is how you hold your hands important in Zen meditation? Is a cosmic mudra the preferred way? I'm curious about mudras in general and wonder the meaning with different ones. So I'm sure there's a lot to unpack with that question. I personally don't know a lot about the mudras, but what I can say is that, like in the first few chapters of Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, talks about, it doesn't talk about the Noble Eightfold Path, or it doesn't talk about the Four Noble Truths. It talks about sitting, and when I first started reading that, it was just, you find a way to sit with your back straight, breathe, and it was just really basic. But in hindsight, when I look back at that, it was about looking at, the idea of the Buddha nature of just expressing myself in this way. And actually, I was reading somewhere that Shunryu Suzuki said, when I want to see somebody for who they are, I don't watch them while they're talking to someone. I watch them while they're staring at a wall. So that's who you are. That's your Buddha nature. So I'm sure there is something there to how you hold your hands, but I think within Zen teaching, maybe, the point isn't to focus on how you hold your hands, but just to sit and hold your hands the way it's natural, and go from there. But Vicky.
I appreciated the comment, and I really liked when you said the more you sit, the more you find the richness in it. Because my practice isn't always consistent, but I do remember that feeling, and it's not because I'm concentrating deeper or anything like that. It just, what I think it does is, from my daily life and the way I react to things, is just, it improves it so much, it gives me that slower reactionary time, and I do remember that, because I'm kind of out of my practice, but I love that you find the richness. That was really, it's like, that's the word, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely think it. I was reading, so like in Zen specifically, the highest level of practice, I think it was knowledge, practice, and enlightenment. And so there's other levels, you know, but it was just interesting to me that it's like all of those work together. So it's like spending the time to read, to learn, and I think that's with right intentions, that's a way to enrich your practice, and you can't sit 24 hours a day, so it's another way to stay in the present moment and do that. But it's all three of those things combined, create a really rich practice, and I think it does create, and when I'm doing this more regularly, it does create like a real depth of understanding and awareness, and to me, it just becomes more and more beautiful, and I talk about it less in a way where it's like a fact, but it's more of an experience. Yes, an experience. And that's when I think those three things come together.
I think I'm at a weird kind of phase in my own personal practice where I need to kind of consume a lot of the literature or consume a lot of other people's techniques, you know, and like maybe the advisement of it all, in order to really invigorate my practice again, because it's like, it's weird. I find myself lately actually like kind of when I do my own solo practice at home, I kind of am checking the time a lot, thinking like, where am I or how much time is left, and it's a weird feeling to not be patient with it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll like read something where it's like it's getting back on track. And I don't know, just something you said about kind of combining the practice itself with maybe the literature goes in and the techniques. I feel like those are. It's really nice to have that kind of combination, you know, where one kind of feeds into the other, and you're kind of coming back to both and the community as well.
Yeah, I agree. There's a class on Thursday nights right now on Tibetan Buddhism and different ways of meditating, and one of the things that was in the description was it's a way to sort of invigorate your practice, you know, where it's not, and also learning more, like expanding an understanding of it. Just doesn't have to be one way. And I really want to come Thursday night from 7 to 8 and do that for that same reason. But I've always loved learning. And sort of reading, like that's always sort of enriched that practice. I mean, like in Zen, even in Zen, My Beginner's Mind, and Shunryu Suzuki and his other books, he talks about the fact that you don't need to read anything. You could just sit. And I think that's maybe the attractive aspect of Zen, is where it doesn't have to be complicated. If you just sit, like all of these things will happen. You know, like the clouds clearing and there's the sun. And I think I probably need the extra help, you know, just as a guide. And I just think that kind of guides me a little bit. But I mean, I agree with you in terms of, you know, just sort of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks sometimes. Let's sit for the remainder of the time. You know, Vicky, our host, has something to read real quick.
Tonight's host, Vicky. We opened the Dharmabumtemple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who leave are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction. And we have our food redistribution group program every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it. Bring it back when you are finished. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay and help close latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Michael, and hope to see you guys again.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out. It really made my day. So thank you so much, everybody.